Waiting at the curb in the light snow while the doorman signaled a cruising cab, Jake thought about the news he'd got from Gary Noble, and a small frown touched his face. He was a slender, gracefully built man in his late 30s, with graying hair and lean features that were saved from austerity by a normal expression of good humor. But he wasn't looking particularly good-humored as he climbed into the cab and gave directions to the driver. He was thinking of what Noble had told him about May Laval. Except for that, the Reardon account would be a routine chore. But the element of May in the equation made everything else unstable. The cab made a U-turn in Michigan Boulevard and headed north toward the Executives Building. Jake lit a cigarette and glanced out at the dark bulk of Lake Michigan and the traffic that formed a chain of light along its shore. He had known May Laval quite a few years, 10 at least, he thought. She was about his own age, 38. The facts about May were not too mysterious. She had come from California to Chicago as a girl of 19, a very beautiful girl with golden hair and large, candid eyes that had surveyed everything in the city with delighted astonishment. She'd gotten into a few shows on the merits of her beauty, which was real and fresh, and after her third show closed, had surprised quite a few people by marrying its backer, an elderly meatpacker. The marriage hadn't lasted long, and May had come out of it on the way to being a wealthy woman. She had proved then that there was something behind her big blue eyes by investing her money shrewdly in South Side real estate that doubled in value within a few years. Jake had met her about that time, which was shortly after her second marriage to an orchestra leader had turned out badly. He had liked her, and they became firm but casual friends. May's talent as news copy always astounded Jake, who was doing features for the Express at the time. She had a flair, or rather a passion, for weird and dizzy escapades. Her antics could range from a nude and nocturnal bathing party in Chicago's Buckingham Fountain to the successful bidding for a Poe first edition that every bibliophile in the country had wanted. May had color. She became known over those years as a character's character. Her plushy Victorian home on Astor Street was crowded with politicians, judges, gamblers, newspapermen, and, for variety, there might be a handful of derelicts picked up personally by her from West Side soup lines. May knew everybody. Everybody knew May. During the war, she reached her zenith as a colorful personality. She was unofficial hostess to the important men who came to Chicago to buy and sell properties in 7 figures. A Girl Friday to the men fighting the war of priorities, allocations, contracts, and logistics. It was said that a meeting of the Allied chiefs of staff might have been held in her parlor on a dozen different occasions. It was said she knew the tastes in women of every general in the army above the rank of brigadier. And it was said she had made a killing in the market with tips from contractors and brokers who exchanged this information in return for the right word in the right ear at the right time. The end of the war seemed to bring May's era of curious importance to a close. The press was slightly weary of her, and there was competition from returning GIs, from strikes, readjustment, and the other agonies of peace. The days passed when May's name could be found in 3 or 4 columns in every edition of every paper in town. Jake realized that he had hardly seen May since the end of the war. She had made a few sporadic attempts to recapture the attention that had always been part of her life, and then she'd gone to Sun Valley. That had been all, until the rumor of her book began to float around. According to the vague but prurient reports, the book would be one to end all books on the war. It was to be an exposé based on her diaries, with names, dates, and telephone numbers of chicanery and fornication on the highest of levels. It was to be Madame Recamier telling all in 4-letter words. Jake tossed his cigarette out the cab window. He couldn't help but be amused with May's latest brainstorm, even though it was likely to embarrass their prospective client, Dan Reardon.